Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Wednesday, February the 10th. I'd like to start by thanking the volunteer crew and Shaw staff that makes this program happen every week. The first segment of Citizens Forum is always the Walt and Jack show, so we'll take it away. And Walt, things are so bad that we've got to start with some good news. And the good news is a remarkable win by Bernie Sanders in the New Hampshire primary. So you're a big fan.
Well, yeah, it's good news. You know, I always have my concerns when you're following political leaders. You know, things are never quite what they seem. But Bernie did have an overwhelming victory in New Hampshire. The results were 60% to 40, about 60-40. Hillary got around 40%. You know, given that he was a independent, ran as an independent all his career, and now he's just starting to run as a Democrat and getting this kind of support is pretty remarkable. So that is a very good development.
He just shows this huge hunger in the United States for something better, for a politician who won't betray them. And we have to hope he's that. I mean, a lot of people believe that of Obama. I never did. But Bernie Sanders seems to be from the outside, so we can really have some hope. And what he's saying is just, there is an enemy out there, and the enemy is the people who run the United States, the billionaires, the corporations, the super industrialists, and they're the ones who the people of the United States have got to stand up to and get rid of and replace them with a democratic government. And
yeah,
people are ready.
That's the good side of it. I mean, this is a conversation they're having.
Yes.
Are they going to have Bernie Sanders as the Democratic candidate? It's very hard to say. There's a lot of stumbling blocks between here and becoming the candidate. But just by discussing these issues openly on a daily basis, now the large corporate media are obsessed with Donald Trump, including the CBC. And I thought, okay, Bernie had this mash through success in New Hampshire. That should lead the news. The taxpayers funded newscasts at CBC. Basically, it's the truth. This is a huge breakthrough. No, they started out with Donald Trump and rambled on about him, and then they talked about Bernie a little bit. The thing is that they really don't want to talk about, apparently, is that how he raises his money.
And they don't want to talk about any of his ideas.
His ideas, too. I mean, I can understand that, but the thing about him is he does not accept money from large corporations. His average donation is $27. Apparently today they raised $5 million after his victory. So he's getting a huge amount of donations from everybody. Never has happened before. Yes. Now, here's some interesting things. So Hillary Clinton has raised $175 million, which is a remarkable sum. Like the best that's been done on the Republican side is Jeb Bush has got around $75 million, but Bernie's raised $75 million. So I thought, you know, he was, you know, going to be scraping along, but actually he's starting to raise some serious dough now. So again, something entirely different. You know, it's like a crowdsourced candidate here. Everybody's sending him money, and I'm sure it's not only Democrats that are sending him money. So it's a big thing.
So I saw a little bit of his acceptance speech. It was Monday night, I guess, and he said, "This is, you know, this shows." He said to the people of New Hampshire, "You've spoken out about the political establishment." Cheer from the crowd.
Yeah.
And he said, "And you've spoken about the economic establishment." Cheer from the crowd. And he said, "And the media establishment," and got the biggest cheer.
Yeah.
Because that is the biggest enemy, bigger than they are the same, it's the same enemy. It's the corporations that run the politicians and own the media. And Bernie and his gang of the American people, bless them, are
and
standing up to it.
there's great coverage online. You can go online and live streaming and the coverage online, and you can see what's going to happen is that if the corporate news is going to be so slanted and biased, you know, I fired up my computer and caught up on everything in great coverage. So you can see the networks are going to get into trouble if they're going to keep on bending the facts so dramatically. You know, it's one thing is just, you know, ignoring the coverage and stuff, and then just trying to change the facts. And people can check them immediately on their computer and say, no, that's biased or wrong, you know. But the thing is that there are some stumbling blocks. I want to mention them. And those are the three supers that I came up with. Each term has a super in it. It's the super PACs. Those are organizations that raise money outside of the political parties. Super delegates, which the Democratic Party has.
Hundreds of them. And they
Sorry?
get hundreds. They have hundreds of super delegates.
Yeah, 20% of
or
the delegates.
establishment of the party.
The establishment delegates, and of course then the super rich within the party. And Hillary does represent the super rich, and they are going to raise an incredible amount of money. You know, the Koch brothers are planning on spending around $700 million on this election, probably mostly on the Republicans, but not exclusively. So, super rich, you know, it's astonishing how much money is spent. A lot of that money goes right into the networks' pockets that do all the political ads and all the newscasting and all that. It fuels that industry. So the super delegates might be the most up in the air issue, and because super delegates tend to vote for the established candidate. With Obama, he came in. He wasn't really the establishment candidate when he was seeking the nomination, but they went with him quite early. And I think one thing we could watch carefully is how long you see the super delegates sort of holding up before you start seeing a general endorsement of Bernie Sanders. Now, if they hold out to the end, it could cause a lot of volatility in the convention, but also, if you look at the polling, which is very interesting, when they stack Hillary Clinton up against Donald Trump, who looks like he's going to be the Republican candidate, Hillary doesn't fare that well against Donald Trump, but Bernie fares very well against him. So so Bernie could take Trump on and handle him quite easily, where Hillary's not a shoo-in. I think the super delegates are going to be looking at that really carefully and wondering what they should do.
And a lot of water still has to flow.
Oh,
under the
a heck of a lot. Yeah.
A lot to happen. So other places are talking about pipelines.
Right.
Here in Victoria, we are going to be talking about a poop line. And what you're seeing, where my finger is here, this is a part of every one of the sewage treatment plans that are being put forward now by Lisa Helps and I think by the city's establishment and media as well. What you see, that line is a poop line, a pipeline carrying sewage from Clover Point to Rock Bay, which is where they say they're going to build this new $1-point-something billion sewage treatment plant, whether we want it or not. And that pipeline, there's going to be two pipes actually, running up Cook Street probably, although it could be, I was told, Vancouver or Quadra, but probably Cook Street, from Dallas Road to Bay Street. And the devastation that is going to cause along the Cook Street corridor is going to be absolutely amazing, I assume, unless there's a way to do this without stopping traffic, which I don't think there is. But that's only one part of this whole thing. It's really beginning, I mean, it really does. I didn't know at first, you know, Lisa Helps became the chair of this committee, and I didn't know which way things were going to go, but it's beginning to look very bad, I think. We're just being, I think, just manipulated by the people running the show, whoever they are, and the politicians, and the media. Because I'm just shocked that I live very close to Cook Street, and I've never heard really. I have heard a few times, kind of went in one ear and out the other.
But you did attend recently a public consultation meeting.
I attended two, one put on by the opponents of the official plan and one put on by the official plan. The opponents one probably got 120 people, and the official one maybe 20. And when I was at the official one, I felt like I was in 1984. It was remarkable, just telling us, I think they were, the official line was, this is a wonderful open, we're only here to listen, We're only here to put your opinions forward. But it's like if you don't have the official opinion, it doesn't matter what gets put forward because the official plan is what's going to go ahead. It's a remarkable situation given that literally billions of dollars are in play just here in this one small city of, Greater Victoria, and it's not even the whole city that's involved. But the amount of money that could be wasted on this the Blue Bridge was a disaster brought to us by sort of these same people.
Yeah.
What next? What are they trying to do to us? It is amazing.
Noam Chomsky wrote the book The Manufacture of Consent. And that was a book about how the mass media is used to form public opinion in a way that suits the elites. Basically, if they want to have a war, they figure out a way to shape the...
And that's because the elites own the mass media.
Yes. Of course. And then, but, it's now got into another sort of they've been ratcheted up to a point where it's manufacturing reality, where there basically is no other reality other than what they're proposing. When you go in there and have any questions, any concerns, you just don't fit. You feel very strange. I know I did too. Now I was looking at the Times columnist, just looking at a couple of articles, and I remembered something that was said by David Anderson, and the ex-environment minister for the Federal Liberal Party, in December 6th, 2015, in the TC. And David Anderson said, it's time the CRD came clean. It is showing itself to be dysfunctional when it comes to the largest construction project they've ever handled. And then he went on to say, in a 2004 study by the Society of Environmental Toxicology and Chemistry found sewage treatment may be necessary in the future, but it said it wasn't needed now. And David Anderson has elaborated on that several times. The thing is that this is, there's a lot of credibility in the people who oppose this program as being brought forward. That when an ex-environment minister is calling a government dysfunctional,
yeah,
this is a serious charge against them.
Yeah.
And one that they would love to try to ignore. Now, what my criticism has been of the CRD, because it's a CRD program, is that they really have no legitimacy because the board of directors of the CRD is not elected. We can't get the vote on this because these people set on the CRD are appointed. So they basically do not have the right, in my view, to make decisions, especially of this magnitude. Nobody has given them that right.
Well, whether they have it or not, they're going to make it. And I understand that it's possible that final decisions on this are going to be made by the end of February. And we're going to be committed, I'm not sure I'm right when I say this, but possibly by the end of February, to a project that is going to cost us $1 billion and more to build, and hundreds and hundreds of millions more to operate over the next 20 years.
And time again, we have guests on this show saying that the CRD refuses to look at options that were certainly environmentally much better and much cheaper and much less disruptive to the public and all that. And this committee refuses to acknowledge these proposals. And they can get away with it because they don't have to turn to the electorate on this one. They're appointed into this committee.
And nobody even knows what they're doing.
That's right. Nobody can figure out who the heck is running the show. And I think that's why the CRD should be elected. And that's why, and I also think that the city councilors should not be allowed to sit on the CRD. They should do their jobs and let the CRD do their jobs too. And the interests are different, are totally separate.
I want to move to the situation facing people that have been made homeless in our city and in our country, quite made homeless deliberately by the people who run the country. This is the story in the Times Colonist, I think February 7th. It says, and I don't want to pick on the Times Colonist. It's no worse than all of the rest. It's just that it's here in black and white, so it's easy to use. Local television, local radio, national television, they're all the same. But what it says is the headline, "In defiance of order to leave, camper adds a new shelter." So, and then they have a quote above it, and the quote is, "If no one leaves, it's not as if they have the power to do anything about it." So I'm just wondering why the Times Colonist chooses to take this situation and put it in such adversarial terms, basically pitting the homeless people, who are simply the people at the bottom of the economic ladder, against everyone else. In defiance of order to leave, they add a new shelter, and somebody says if no one leaves, it's not as if they have the power to do anything about it. I mean, to me, that's the way all the media operates. They are owned by the corporations that run the country and create the problems because there's a deliberate shortage of housing. And the other side of the deliberate shortage of housing is the astronomically high housing prices in Canada. I mean, if there was more housing available, and the fact, and this is perhaps most important and which the media never talks about, Brian Mulroney, when he was Prime Minister, changed Canadian law and allowed non-residents to become owners of Canadian real estate, non-residents and non-citizens. So they put our homes into the international market, and that was Mulroney. It stayed that way through Chrétien, it stayed that way through Harper, and it's staying that way now through Mr. Trudeau. But change the law. Let's go back to the way it was a couple of decades ago, and we can't do it overnight because the mess they've created is so massive. But we've got to start moving towards, no, you've got to be resident in Canada and a citizen, or to become a citizen, to own property here. But they never talk about it. It's as if that isn't a part of the problem. Huge fortunes are being made, and when this thing collapses, the devastation it's going to cause to our society is incalculable.
You know, and when you're taking out mortgages, you feel like you're a poker player, you know. Every few years you got to march back into the bank and try to outsmart them one way or another. You know, homes should have a long terms, like 20, 25 years at low interest rate. Should be totally stable and
Prices
guaranteed.
should be low so people can afford to live.
It would be a great way to use the Bank of Canada.
Yes.
To offer very low interest, long-term, stable payments, and it guarantees the security for the person.
And I really believe that there's a deliberate shortage of housing, which is a part of the problem. Last week there was the huge, you know, I was thinking of the PR firms that you always talk about. There was this huge thing in the media about the Great Bear Rainforest. It's been saved, what a wonderful triumph for the environment, how great it is. It came and went in about 3 days, but it was front page news, massive coverage. And so the message was, this is all good, we don't have to worry about it. But I really think it was all a PR stunt. The truth is, the Great Bear Rainforest is being logged. This is an article in the Globe and Mail, February 9th, by Mark Hume. He says, the great irony is that while it was repeated ad nauseum that the Great Bear Rainforest has been saved, it hadn't been saved and still isn't. Under the final deer, bear hunting is still allowed in the Great Bear Rainforest. Logging continued during negotiations. For the years of negotiations, the logging companies kept the destruction going, and the deal allows for an annual cut of 2.5 million cubic meters. Now, I would say that's probably 1/30th, I'm guessing, of the total cut in the whole province. So 1/30th of the total for the province is being cut in the Great Bear Rainforest. Among the areas that have been or will be logged are some of the richest forest valleys on the Central Coast, including, you know, he just mentions a place that is is even more famous than the rest. So the destruction continues and will continue. Nothing has been saved, because when they run out of trees under this thing, they'll just start the negotiations again. We've got to stop these corporations.
Especially cutting of old-growth forests, which really should end.
Yes.
It's nobody's interest to cut another old-growth tree, except for the people the few people involved in getting rich. Leaving those trees stand for just for the ecological value for the species that are existing there, species that we probably don't know about yet. And one of the most exquisitely wild areas still left in North America, in the world.
Really, the environmental groups that agreed to this, and if really, people have got to question, as you said last week, what gives them the legitimacy to make deals in our name when we don't even know what the deals are?
Yeah, and it concerns me where they're getting their funding. And I know Greenpeace, very questionable funding sources. And
forest ethics.
Forest ethics, I looked, never had a chance to look into their funding, so I'm not sure. But
there's a lot of criticism about forest ethics from people I know who are in the environmental movement.
So when money's flowing in from large corporate interests into environmental groups, well, the old saying is, he who pays the piper calls the tune. Yeah. And the stories get twisted, like as you're presenting here today. And they'll tell you something the opposite of what's really happening here, where more logging is going to occur at an escalated rate. And as I said last week, the 15% are probably the most pristine valley bottoms with the largest, most massive trees, and a good amount of this would be mountainside and rocks that never could grow a tree anyway. So we are being sold another bill of goods here. And
Walter, we're out of time.
That's why I think the NDP should be much more critical about this program.
We are being sold a bill of goods, but hopefully not by this show. Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum.